Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, man.
First off, tell us why we're in this bar tonight.
I don't know, we were starting there.
We're just gonna give us the quick pitch. We're all drinking awesome drinks, and then we'll go into it.
We're in this bar tonight because I have a new music software that helps venues promote shows using video instead of pictures. So most posts through social media are a still image, album cover. We do 20 seconds of the band that's performing to give you an idea of a better idea of the music you can expect if you attend the show. Rural American was my first client.
They were his first client. And speaking with the team here, they joined Kevin's party to do this because they believe in you, right? The software's still new, they're taking the chance on Kevin. So walk us through to how we get all the way to this company, this badass bar, taking a bet on you by setting the stage for what family life was like growing up.
Oh, I guess I didn't read the outline.
There's no outline.
You got this, Kevin.
Akron, Ohio, Midwestern dream. My parents have been together since high school, very supportive parents, Midwestern upbringing, sports, family, values. Came down to the College of Charleston after graduating undergrad, and it's kind of been in and out of Charleston with various businesses and traveling abroad ever since. But I grew up with like the cutesy little Midwestern tale, I guess.
Now, were your parents entrepreneurs?
No, my mom was an educator and my dad is a corporate businessman.
All right, before we get to the next question, if anyone can at any point not hear us talking, just raise your hand. Because that's happened before and that's on me, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Will, you got me?
Yeah.
Cool, so wholesome values, mother was a teacher, dad was a businessman, you go off to College of Charleston. At that point, what did you think you wanted to do with your life?
We've hung out like 3 times, and I feel like we didn't even cover like. At the time, I think I didn't have an idea. I mean, I think I always had business in the back of my mind because I grew up with it. But I went to a liberal arts school at CFC, and I kind of knew I was always going to get a specialized degree. I thought it was going to be law because I was more interested in international relations and diplomacy. It was kind of my thing, way more than business. And so I guess when I went to CFC, I went for the liberal arts side. Small campus, great professors, cool town.
Is there anything specific you wanted to get out of your education? Like, how did you choose what classes to take? How did you choose where you wanted to go?
No, you're setting me up, I got it. I remember, so I went home for a holiday break and I was going to a Cleveland Browns game with my dad, and I was a freshman, and I was like, hey Dad, what should my major be if I'm gonna want to be a international entrepreneur? Little punk, you know. And he laughed and he said, I would tell you to know people. And the way I understood that wasn't like people in the right places. I understood that as like knowing who people are, what motivates them, how to predict behavior, how to relate to them, speak to them, engage with them. So I did history, religious studies, and philosophy to get an idea of like who people are.
Yeah, and then where did that lead? Excuse me, where did that lead you after college?
I actually moved to Italy. So back then, CFC, I don't know, younger people. At CFC back in the day, used to do 2 years of a language. I did Italian for no other reason other than it kind of sounds nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great language. I love the culture. So I studied Italian, moved to Italy, and but even before that, I did semester at sea. I think is where it really drove in all those lessons of people. We did Japan, Vietnam. I'm used to be better at this. Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, India, the Seychelles Islands, Brazil, South Africa, Brazil, Cuba. So on that study abroad trip, I think pretty quick, right? You spend 5 days in these places, you don't really feel like you get to dive in, but when you're spending 5 days in very different places in a short amount of time, I mean, you really get an understanding for the diversity that's out there and how to like really dive into that. And I think as far as the business type thing goes, like you get to see where you can like see categorize and niches and different group settings and that. So I think the semester at sea thing was a big story for me.
Go back, why do you think you told your dad you wanted to be an international entrepreneur? And like entrepreneurship's not necessarily in your family, that's like a very punk answer, but like, why did you say it?
I get to say it was punk.
Here comes the train.
Discuss amongst yourselves. What are you talking about? Why did I ask my dad I wanted to be an international entrepreneur? It sounded awesome. I think at the time, this is an awful explanation, right? I mean, it's not awful explanation, awful reason. At the time when I was growing up, Shaquille O'Neal was a really big deal.
Yes. Shaq
was like taking over the NBA, and he had that rap song about like entrepreneur, and I was like, oh.
That's it. So
I'm in with Shaq. So I mean, literally, I feel like when we were growing up, there was more press going, more media going to unconventional business people. I don't remember being much younger than that and hearing about entrepreneurs. Like what we hear now, like this happening, like you doing this is very new within the economy, at least with like publicity. I mean, I grew up, my dad was like corporate dude, like dressed to the nine, very sophisticated businessman. I never knew that, like, because I was a little different, you know, my dad was like super buttoned up guy, and I was like, okay, so I'm not like that, but I can still do business. So I think when I heard Shaq say that, I was like, I think I can do that too.
All right, so fast forward, you did that's great. So you did study abroad after you graduated college, right? You took a year studying Italian, and then what was like your first job after you came back? What was your first foray into entrepreneurship?
No. Actually, I had to get this on here, just so my sister hears it especially. My first foray into entrepreneurship is that I was 4 years old and I started a restaurant in my parents' house. And I served them bed and breakfast, and the menu had prices on it, and they paid me.
Well, that was good prep.
Anyway,
that was great prep then for what was like your first foray after college into entrepreneurship.
Right.
You were trained.
So I moved to San Diego. I was going to do the legal thing. I was going to law school. I was working at a law firm. Took the LSAT and everything, and actually spoke with a bunch of students. And I spoke with some recent graduates, and they all just begged me. They're like, dude, unless you really want to practice law, I'm really sorry there's an attorney here. Attorneys? No, we're good. They were like, please don't do that. It's like, unless you really wanted to use the degree. So I actually moved to Olympia, Washington, and then started an organic farm with my brother. Yeah, his first business.
Do you think that's what Shaq was referring to in his song?
See, I was going to do it my way. I don't know if Shaq was into organics, no. At the time, I really wanted to be a good brother. My brother had his dream. This was early 2000s or mid 2000s, and the organics thing, which is obviously now ridiculous, you know, huge. I think it's almost conventional now. They're going back.
They're just fucking with us.
They're going back. So organics at the time were huge. San Francisco to Seattle, right? Here, it's everywhere. I mean, the Amazon Whole Foods deal, I think, is like a perfect example of that. I mean, it's here. It's an established industry, but back then it was new, and I believed in my brother's mission. He read a book that you could create this permaculture greenhouse, and out of that greenhouse, with the cycling everything from the animal waste to the plants and everything, you could revenue $1 million out of this greenhouse.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
So you have a liberal arts degree. You practiced Italy. What was your role going into that partnership with your brother? What were you responsible for?
Sales.
Sales. And did you know how to sell?
Yes.
How did you know how to sell?
I mean, I don't want to go too textbook here like the MBA thing, but we all know how to sell. You misidentified what that actually is. I sold you to come here. In everyday interactions, you guys have heard this before, right? I think we constantly sell as people. Not like in a like misgiving way or anything mischievous, but we're always like have ways we're expressing ourselves, and I'd prefer this. I mean, all that is selling, so I didn't feel like I needed any formal training, because my dad had already told me no people. So my mindset, my business mind was, if I can speak to someone, I mean, why not sell?
Yeah, so describe like that first year going into it. You're doing a partnership. start organic farming.
I come here pretty often. This is rare. I swear to God, it's rare. I mean, what is it like when he goes back? I don't know what that does. Like when he goes back. Anyway, let's go. Everyone, we're all on the same page.
We're all on the same page. We're all
on the same page that we're just going to talk through it, right?
Yes.
Cool. So we're talking about organic farming. We're talking about your first real job as an entrepreneur when you're not selling your your parents' scrambled eggs.
They paid me.
They paid you. What was that first year like? What was easy? What was hard? What met your expectations? What didn't you expect? Set the stage for being an organic farmer in your young 20s with a brand new take at entrepreneurship.
Right. I think the hardest thing was actually maybe I made selling sound a little easier than it was. But yeah, I mean, when you're walking into those first calls, you're nervous. You're like, do I look alike? I don't know, how do we do this? But, so I think just actually finding that salesmanship, I think was one. Two, we just were young and didn't know a whole lot about business. My brother read this book. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know how you make $1 million out of a glass greenhouse. And I believed him because I wanted to support him. And I'm like, and there's a story, and I shared it with Jeremy. And again, Akron, Ohio is cold, right? It's the north, whatnot. Washington, I don't think you associate it with being as cold as maybe the north. I don't know why, because it's more of a temperate climate. I would rather it be 25 and snowing than 35 and raining. And in Washington, my brother and I are out in these beds using our fingernails to clip the little pieces of spinach, arugula, and we had a high-end salad mix. And it was so cold. And it took us 2 hours to get, I was filling this bag. It was 2 hours later, I looked at this bag, and it was so light. They were probably 3 pounds. And I looked at my brother and I was like, how much do we pay ourselves? I just spent 2 hours trying to make this salad mix. We sell it for $15 a pound. I was like, I gotta get out of here. This isn't a good business model. That's what I learned. Oh, so what did I learn? Numbers. Yeah, definitely. So I think the social side of it was there, right? I was just talking with someone, I can't remember who it was, and she was asking me for some advice, and she's giving 100% of her proceeds to Haiti, hurricane and whatnot. And I was like, look, I love it. I'm very thoughtful. But like I told my brother at the time, I was like, I don't know how you can help people if you're out of business. So yeah, great. So, organic movement is great. Feed people nutrition, all of that is awesome. But you got to make money. So numbers is what I learned.
Yeah, so leaving, it sounds like you left, right? You left organic farming. You had that moment where you're picking cold leaves for $2 an hour.
Freezing.
At that point, would you say you still wanted to be an entrepreneur? Where was your mindset in the grand scheme of what's next?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think at that point I was like, yeah, this is me. I liked the ability of moving. I knew it was okay, so we didn't do great here. But I think that's before I knew it was called pivoting, but I thought it was kind of fun that I saw that we could do better. Mm-hmm. So I was committed. I just knew I didn't want to do a second organic farm. Yeah. I was just going to do something else. And I guess at that point, a couple years out of school, the Italian things kind of going with the way. I don't speak Italian. I didn't speak Italian. I was like, you know what? I want to get an international experience. As far as my whole going back to this understanding people thing. I was like, well, at this point in my life, I want to live abroad. I want to pick up a second language, and I want to learn what it feels like to live in another culture. So I felt like, from the anthropologist sales perspective, that I could feel that. So I moved to Costa Rica.
What was the story behind moving to Costa Rica? You spent a globe.
I went on a surf trip.
You went on a surf trip, and what did you see when you were in Costa Rica?
Yeah. So I went on a surf trip. But at the time, I don't know, I think some people in here have been there. At the time, actually Sam lived there. At the time, early 2000s, mid 2000s, Costa Rica was on fire. Real estate was the growth, the development, the popularity. Everyone's talking Costa Rica. So personal side, I had a malignant melanoma when I was young, and I had it repeatedly. So I wanted to do an NGO or a Peace Corps type thing, but I couldn't go and commit to 2 years because I had to like stay close to doctors. So when I found in Costa Rica was business opportunities, second language, surf, and so I wrote a business plan, some properties, and started a real estate company.
What does that mean? I mean, you go there on a surf trip, you see, like, what's the process that you go through to see these opportunities and to actually decide this is what I want to do next, and I'm going to go do that now? Like,
Right.
what is that like?
Yeah. The culture was a fit. I was going to say waves because I keep trying to be funny, but there was a couple American guys there that were doing it, and I made friends with them, and they were explaining the way it was, how well it was doing, and it was a fit for me. I already had this criteria in my mind. Excuse me, I don't want to keep burping. International, second language, and a culture that I wanted to be a part of. So it was there. So when I met with a couple guys and they told me what was happening, I was like, this is a fit for me. I don't know if anyone's going to give me money. So it started raining. So September, October is kind of rough down there because it rains a lot. I moved back to the States just to get out of the rain, sat down on my computer one night, convinced myself, I think this could happen. Wrote an email, and literally invited the email, no attachment, no fancy outline structure to it. I wrote an email and sent that to 100 friends, family, business contacts, and I attached pictures, and I gave them 2 examples of properties that I could acquire and what they'd be valued for over time if I did simple improvements, water, electricity, some aesthetic planning, and I sent it off, and just came firing back.
Yeah, what were you trying to raise money? You were just trying to gauge interest?
I'm sorry.
What were you trying to do?
No, that email, I was proposing those 2 properties to buy. And yeah, we raised that money and we bought them.
How much money did you raise?
That first raise was about $800,000. And then we did that again. I have no idea. We spoke about this. You guys remember the time, right? If you were in business back then, pre-2008, people were investing in things left and right. I know I'm a nice person, those of you who know me. 25 years old, I have no idea why people were giving me hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in Costa Rica. I have no idea, but yeah, they did it. And I think it was part of like the economic climate at the time. And because it was friends and family, I think people thought, this is someone trust.
Yeah.
So those are only 2 things I can come up with. Otherwise, it's great.
How many investors did you have?
So the first raise, I think, was 4 or 5, and then after that, I got another like 4 or 5.
Okay. So with those investors, you're the steward of their capital. You're buying properties that you don't have experience buying, but you met some people that are going to help you along the way. Are there any stories that, relationship-wise, with those investors, did it go really well? Was it poor? Like, how do you manage that as a 25-year-old, not really knowing what you're doing?
Yeah. My answer to that, every Friday, and I did this, every Friday I wrote an update and long emails, and no one was reading them. But so I did it by communication. Always have to do that. You guys, I don't know how much I'm supposed to be like preaching at this point, but if you guys have investors, bite your tongue, treat them well. Money's tough. People get in tough pinches. You got such a delicate relationship. So this was pre-2008, and everyone was, the States was rolling. 2008 hit, and one of them was nearing retirement, pension type thing, loss of money, and then he started questioning whether we owned a property in Costa Rica. He thought I bought the yacht, and I was out. Although I'd seen him, so I've been through that threat of, hey, I gave you money, I trusted you, and what is this looking like now after this recession? So the big learning lesson from that is if you guys are starting things, if you have young companies, that takes capital, be careful who you take that money from.
Yeah, so overall, with the real estate investing in Costa Rica, was it successful? Is it too early to tell? Where are you with these properties?
No, it's great. At the time, I thought it was great. Pre-2008, we had bought some, flipped a couple. I was doing a few things, and we made money. And I was young. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I did this. I was like, am I going to retire? 2008 hit. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Was that entrepreneurial journey successful?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it is. It is because, here's another great point for who you take money from, is their capacity to do that investment, right? If taking 100 grand from someone who's has 200 to play with and they're giving you half of that, threatening situation. The guys I got involved were well-off guys, so I think that worked out.
Yeah.
So we were able to wait through that, the 2008 for about 5 years. That downturn has started coming back. The market's back. The place is crushing it, so we're back now. But if you don't have that luxury of waiting, you're in trouble. So again, with like the money you're taking, like understanding who those people are and their ability to provide that investment is a really big deal.
So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Kevin did what any of us would do when we have a little win as a real estate investor, and he opened a bar in Costa Rica, which is the right answer.
Recession-proof.
Recession-proof, right? And that in itself was fairly successful, and you got to live a really cool life. Why didn't you do that forever?
Eventually you get tired of sunsets, margaritas, and hammocks. How many people hate me right now?
Everyone.
Just Noah. I appreciate that no one hates me. But no, I used to say that because it's true. The island fever thing. I didn't have a margarita and a hammock every day. It's just like that island life is so small, and like this, the diversity of experience wasn't there. I was like, I need something more out of this. But I think the story we're searching for here is that I had a Halloween party. Actually, a guy who had a nice big fancy house had a Halloween party. I was the after party. And the after party was there, and it's Costa Rica, so it's kind of a free-for-all. And this one guy's partying really hard, and he's being physical with a girl he was dating at the time. So I step in, being a diplomat, is like my place, and I knew them. I was like, Carlos, calm down, you can't do this. And he's like flailing his arms, like, Kevin, get off of me. And a bottle flew out of his hand. And can you hear him? Can you, Sam? A bottle flew out of his hand, busted open my cheekbone, and my house was behind the bar at the time. So I went back to the house, looked at myself in the mirror, my face is open, I'm bleeding, and I was like, I'm going home. It was kind of like that tipping point. I don't know if you've lived in a third world country before, but as a foreign national, you're challenged by the fact that you're not from there. You're challenged, especially if you're successful. You're challenged by the local municipality because the people in town are complaining to them about the number of foreigners they're doing better than they are. So I had already been through like a lot of municipal challenges. So when that bottle broke my face open, I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. If you were to look in a mirror at that point, well, minus like the bloody face, like what do you think internally like was missing? Like you talked about fulfillment and not wanting those diversity of experiences. Like what did you think you wanted to make you happy at that time?
Progress. I think it got to the point where, at least for me, I think I'm the type of person, I'm 2 to 3 years, professionally at least, and I think I felt a little stagnant. I did this real estate thing, I couldn't help the fact that '08 happened, slowed down, so I started the bar.
So yeah, what was the due diligence? All that.
So I was speaking with Damon on the phone, and he was asking me like how things are going, how's my team, because he's got a dedicated team that I think I got a great deal. He's first of all a great guy. I get his back. I think Damon's cool. His team is great, and I've been working with them. So he's like, so what's going on? Tell me. And I think it was around holiday times. So it was right before it aired, and I was with my family, had a few drinks, feeling really confident, and we're talking, and I was like, Damon, this is really strange for me. This isn't business. There's like this TV element. I agreed to a deal. I've written you multiple times, and I've called you letting you know I'll send you whatever you need, like the financials, the 10 grand in sales.
Yeah.
The financials, like I'll prove I have the patent, all these things. Like, are you taking advantage of me? Should I be taking advantage of you? What the F is going on? And I said that to him on the phone, and he starts dying laughing. And he's like, I like that. He's like, give me 2 days, I'm gonna call you back. And because at the time, so the first few seasons, people were agreeing to deals and then like kind of running away from the shark because they didn't want to agree to the deal, but they wanted it to air. So now the sharks have the right to say who airs. And so he's like, I'll give you a call back. So he called the network and called me back 2 days later and said, look, I've appreciated how forward you are. I want you to be a part of the Damon John team and the brand. I don't know how much I can help, so I don't want any equity. If you need a line of credit, let me know, but you're on Team Damon. Let me know how I can help. It's been great to know you. So if you go on the show, the best thing that can happen is getting that partnership and being aligned with one of them and not giving up anything. So I got the sweetheart deal.
So how has he been helpful since that happened?
Just the brand, so Damon's great again, but I don't speak with Damon all that much. In the beginning we did, but I speak with his team. He's got 20 people in New York that help out. And I think just having that leverage, I mean, previously when I had the 10 grand, if I called up a store and I was like, hi, I've got a floating koozie. But now I'm like, hi, my name's Kevin Waltermire. I'm the founder of BEVBOY. I was on Shark Tank. I got to deal with Damon John. She's like, hi, Kevin. It's like, nice. So I think just having the leverage of that show and having the ability of being introduced to those people through his network has been everything.
Yeah, know what else I like? We don't have to go into the story, but I was doing research on Shark Tank and you and all this stuff, and there's like this 3-minute clip on the Home Shopping Network with like you and Damon John with, again, the fish bowl.
Fish tank.
Which I guess is just like your move for these things. But it was nice to see, right?
What
that,
else
like,
are you going to use?
He actually was willing to put time in to help you and your business grow, which I thought was...
That summer, we went on the Home Shopping Network together.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. All right, so I know you got another chapter we want to get to. I don't want to keep people here all night. So BEVBOY's been around now for how many years since Shark Tank?
2. Coming up on 2.5.
Coming up 2.5. Like, you've grown it into a business, which is a very nice lifestyle business. You're selling a lot of product. You've got distribution. There's something inside of you, it sounds like, because you started something else where like you're looking in the mirror and you're not totally fulfilled or whatever it is. Like, walk us through like why you started something else. Like, how did you know it wasn't right for you anymore or not? What led you to what's next?
I mean, as far as what I think what y'all should do, numbers, more respect for me.
You want the Kevin story?
I'm giving you. For me, I just know it's that time period. It's like 2 to 3 years, and I think, I mean, really simply, I personally can tell how much I'm enjoying something based on just like the amount I'm diving into it, the way I feel when I wake up, the whole thing. And I felt like this was the plan with BEVBOY. Once I decided to do it, was that because it was a revenue generating product and this other idea I had, which was tech, wasn't. The plan was that, all right, I'm going to give this funny little product. I mean, no one wakes up and is like, I want to be a floating koozie salesman. But I did. But the plan was, I think it's going to do well enough that I'm going to take what I earn off of BEVBOY to finance my next project. And that's what I did.
And what did you do? What's the next project? What's next company?
So we did the quick intro already, right? MusicBoxx, the software. So when I was living in China, censorship is real, right? I don't know if you all have been there. If you have 2 monitors and they're both the New York Times, and one has a VPN and it's routing you through something going on over there? There's a fox. Everyone's like, Kev, no. Fox, yes. Bring me back. I'm seeing
2 monitors.
2 monitors. New York Times. If you have a VPN and you can route your connection through Australia, it looks one way. If you have if you're using a server in China, literally the New York Times looks identical, but stories are missing. So I started paying attention. I was like, wow, that's incredible. So you also can't have Facebook, YouTube, Google, etc. on in China. So I was like really fascinated by the way we interact with social media, and I started paying attention to what was after Facebook. Like, are these going to be like niche networks that break off because Facebook's this big ugly thing? And Instagram was very popular. And at the time, I had no idea what it was. And I have friends in the Bay Area, and I asked them, and they said, yeah, man, they do filters. They're not the first ones to do it, but there's connections in the Bay that made System popular. And they started sharing images. So I started thinking, all right, well, that sounds like a big market. What behavior can I see? What do I identify that I enjoy, that I can see quantifiable on Facebook by my friends? And it was music videos. And I wasn't gonna compete with the audio because the audio is just dominated because it's copyright owned, and Pandora, Spotify, all those guys, iTunes, everyone's doing audio. I was like, man, YouTube is huge. It holds all these music videos, but there's nothing social about it. YouTube's boring. I mean, you don't go on there and interact. You go to source, right? I was like, man, I'm gonna create a social home for music videos, and I called it MusicBoxx.
So who was the initial demographic for MusicBoxx? Who are you building it for?
Music discovery types, people that are into music. I mean, people that are into music.
Yeah. So
we'll do questions after.
Questions like 10 minutes. So we started.
I mean, I'll do it.
We started off the talk by saying that the Royal American was your first customer for MusicBoxx. And what you just said was that when you originally launched, you were doing it for the people, the consumers that were really interested about music. So, how did you identify, what was the right time to pivot? Why did you pivot? And how's that going?
Right, so when I actually got around to building it, it's actually live. But I've been pushing the public-facing side of it because in my mind, it was a social network. And when it actually got built and I was ready to do it, BEVBOY was growing, I had been financing it, we built it. And I was like, all right, how do I get people to use it? Which is usually called a marketing plan. That was really tough because there's so much competition now. When I first had the idea, I don't think there were a lot of things being offered. There's so much coming out now. It's just so hard for even consumers to keep up. I wanted a revenue model and I wanted a marketing plan, and I started paying attention to the way that music venues promoted shows. And I was like, you know what? Instead of doing a ton of Facebook ads, or instead of advertising, or just waiting for organic growth or any other word of mouth, attending a lot of shows, whatever it was, any of those strategies to get users, I was like, I'm going to use venues and I'm going to provide them a service. So now I'm two-facing. I have MusicBoxx, which is the public-facing social network, MusicBoxx Promo, which is which is essentially a promotional service for venues. So I was going to use venues that have shows 4 or 5 times a week and do those 20-second clips, because I was convinced, at least in my mind, I believed it, that if you're a casual fan and you're at home and the Blackfoot Gypsies are playing on Friday, you have no idea who the Blackfoot Gypsies are. And you see a tour poster, what does that mean for you? First of all, it doesn't mean anything. You don't know anything more about the Blackfoot Gypsies. You have to navigate away. You have to go to their website. You have to source the music somehow. So I was convinced that I was like, I think I can offer value to venues by taking these video clips of the actual band that's performing, so the casual fan at home that isn't aware of the name recognition of the band here's 20 seconds and like, those guys are good. Like, I'm gonna go check them out. So my idea was working with venues. They pay me monthly to use that service. I provide the post for them, and by doing that, it's public facing. So everyone's gonna be like, wait, how does the Royal American have 30-second clips of all the bands coming? So I felt like when I aligned myself on the enterprise level with venues, it would do my marketing for me while I was getting paid.
Cool. I'm gonna ask 2 more questions, then we're gonna open it up for Q&A, starting with Gene. All right. So I'm gonna change gears and just say you've done a lot already. You've been in a bunch of different industries. You've seen various levels of success. How do you want to be remembered?
As a business person? I want to be remembered that all of this, what I'm looking for is for one of these to do really well, so that I can help. I'd love, the dream is so that I have enough money to have my own funds, and I help people that are I know the struggle, the grinds, so I just want to contribute to small businesses, entrepreneurs, people that are doing new things. So for me, I think I'm looking forward to being remembered more for what I do after I do my stuff. I'd rather work for believing in people's capacity to create what they want. We all take jobs at points because we have to. We provide for ourselves. But I believe in the people's capacity to have their own ideas, their own visions, their dreams, and these business concepts support them do that.
Awesome. So I want you to leave everyone in the room with just whatever advice you want to give. So if it's what you've learned through adversity and pain of growing your companies, it could be about Charleston Tech, it could be whatever you want to portray to those in the room that are trying to learn something.
On the entrepreneurship side, I would just say, get ready. If you're gonna do this, you gotta be ready to fight, right? A good buddy of mine who's involved in Startup Grind, Barrett Hall, is somewhere hiding. He better be out there. He is. When he was getting into it, I was like, man, this is gonna be challenging. You know, you're gonna feel great about yourself. You're like, oh my God, dude, it actually worked. And then you're gonna question yourself. So if you guys rather, I know a lot of you looking at you have startups, have things you're working on, and if you're considering it, be prepared, be committed. I mean, the finance and the plan and the formality of it aside, but as far as like how you live your life, the quality of life that you're looking for, make sure you're committed for that because it's gonna be real.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, we're gonna open it up for some Q&A. Let's give a round of applause first. All right, Gene, start us off, my friend.
So not being in the tech world and doing a tech company, how did you find your first software developer or coder to actually put all these things out of your mind into a product?
Good question, right?
How'd you find him?
He was asking me that too. So I had friends in San Francisco, and he and his brother-in-law started design and development firms, and because they had done so well, he had leverage for how he sourced that talent, and I was able to access his talent through him. So, which is a big one, right? If you're a non-technical founder, if you're going to start something tech, you better find someone to lean on, and I was leaning on him. Yeah.
Thank you.
Noah.
The hot tub on the TV show.
How?
Yeah, was it there or how'd you?
No, no, you have to pay for it. So your whole set, your set on the show, you have to pay for it. And I called pool companies, jacuzzi companies in Los Angeles. Finally found this one guy who's like, you know, I do this pretty frequently for the movie industry, so yeah, I'll be happy to help you out. It wasn't cheap, but I rented it from him, and he brought it in.
Awesome.
Did it come with a time machine?
Well, it was funny though, right, Will?
All right, next question. Yes.
Looking at your physical product, how did you navigate between promoting your product when you have a startup or before you had a concept patent or anything, and then like promoting it but not giving away too much, or feeling that somebody's going to take your idea when you were on the road? Like, what was your mindset?
Putting it out there and feeling comfortable that no one was going to do it before I could. Yeah, I mean, I think, so in my mind, I think I signed up for, I think what most people would say at this point, that once you've done it, is that it's all execution, almost across industry. So if someone saw it, and however they're able to outcompete me, I was signing up for that. So I think instead of being worried about the idea or what it was, like, oh, floating koozie, I was convinced that I was just going to beat, you just have to outcompete them, right? And I was committed to that. I don't think you can hold back. If you hold back, you're not even going to start a business, right? I mean, because at some point it has to get out there. So I think you just have that, you have to have that confidence in yourself that like, I'm going to do this the best, and you just compete.
Beju.
Quick question, just coming from sort of a healthcare perspective. I work in healthcare, so I thought I'd ask, one of the things I hear from entrepreneurs, and what I'm hearing today is there's a lot of stress involved, a lot of stress on your health and your mental health and as well as physical health. Do you have any sort of routines that you have taken on that either in the morning, afternoon, evening that help you maintain and sort of keep going?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question was, when you're doing this, right, the strikes and gutters, like I said on my Facebook thing, when you're an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, like, what do you do? Do I have a daily ritual just to like balance that, keep my life in balance, and keep those emotions right there? I mean, for me, it's running. I think a big decision that people make, and I'm not saying I make the right one, but I think gym or happy hour is a big one. I can't remember where I read that, but it was actually an entrepreneur, a successful guy. I can't remember what his book was, but like that's a big choice. And I mean, gym. I mean, a balance of that works too, but for me, it's working out. So I think I commit myself to a daily work routine that I work flex hours. I say from like 9 to 6, which usually ends up being 10 to 5, something like that. But it's super important, whatever that is. You know, whatever that exercise is or whatever that health thing is, whether it's prayer, meditation, exercise, whatever it is, yeah. I mean, having that dialed in, you got to have it. And for me, it used to be surfing, which would be great, but we don't have waves often, and unless there's hurricanes, which are bad. So for me, yeah, it's running right now.
Matt.
Do you plan to focus MusicBoxx promo on some of the more of the independent venue side, or are you looking to shop around with the large nationally owned promoters like AG Live?
I'm doing more Royal American mid-tier type stuff, for the main reason being that some of those bigger brand name venues have name recognition bands. So I want to start off testing I want to validate my concept that for the casual fan who doesn't know who the Blackfoot Gypsies are, in my earlier example, they are more likely to go because they don't know who they are, but with my service, they're actually going to buy a ticket. Whereas these brand name, like if I was North Charleston Performing Arts Center or the Coliseum, who was just there, Hall & Oates, right? Sam was there. Hall & Oates is name brand. You don't need to know who's Hall & Oates is. They're Hall & Oates, right? So I'm working more mid-tier because I just think that's a better positioning.
Kind of a piggyback off his. Do you think about, instead of going straight to the venues, also going directly to the bands, maybe not the startup ones, but the ones that are touring, and offering that service that you could integrate depending on where they're going to be on their tour?
Yes. Yes, because I've had bands actually ask me for that. I mean, I thought I was going to do it anyway. I just wanted to start with venues. But when I had a couple of bands contact me, because a lot of bands, when they sell like media, they send media packs,
Sure.
which essentially now is like just a file, right? It's like, this is how we want to be represented on your website. This is, if you're going to do a post, this is our album cover, blah, blah, blah. So what essentially they could do is I could provide them the clip and be like, hey, by the way, when you guys are going to promote our show, would you mind using this MusicBoxx post of 20 seconds long? So yeah, I think there's a fit there. I just, I'm starting venues. I'm going to bring that in. So I will. Thanks. Yeah.
If you had to give advice to a high school senior, someone going to college, deciding between engineering, business, finance, computer science, knowing that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, what advice would you give looking back now?
I think it would. So at the undergraduate level, I think it would depend on any plans for post. I would get a specialized degree. I didn't, but I think if you know what you enjoy, okay, yes, I'm very happy I said that. I would start there. Depending on what their interests are, I would start there, right? I had to get that out there. Because if you're not, and you just, I think if you're getting a degree that you're not interested in because you think it's going to get a job, you're just setting yourself up, right? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, I don't know. I know some people are different, like that's the route they take. But for me, I would start with interests and whatever they truly are interested in, what their passion is. Like if you are an engineer, you actually really enjoy engineering, or you know what, I'm going to be a history major undergrad because I feel like I can understand people. I would start with interests, but I think a specialized degree is strong because you have a skill set, it's marketable.
All right, we're going to do 2 more questions, and I'm going to ask for somebody who has a new startup or an early startup to come up, pitch the room, and let us know how we can help you. But first, 2 more questions for Kevin.
It sounded like you just kind of like jumped into a lot of the businesses that you started. But did you have a mentor ever besides David? Did you have any mentors that helped you out?
Yeah, my dad. Number 1 for sure.
What's his number?
No, and Jeremy asked me about this, and I would say my relationship with my dad is invaluable. Not even just a father-son thing, which is obviously powerful, but and not because he was giving me money. I had to raise money. I was doing those things, but like having that support. I mean, him like encouraging me and just like. I mean, I feel like I derive half of my confidence from that. The fact that he's always like built that into me. I was like, my dad's got me, I guess I can do this. So that was big. And I think what we were talking about is like, I think that's why these events are huge. Because, I mean, when I first did the organic farm, the one startup was Washington, right? But the one startup grind. We were doing this because we thought it was fun and we wanted to do entrepreneurship, but there wasn't some place where you could get together and like share stories and like cry on each other's shoulders and be like, today sucked, tomorrow's gonna get better. So I think this is the part where I throw it out to Jeremy and everyone getting involved in organizations like this. Dee, Baird, I don't know if anyone else is here from Startup Grind. Jackie used to be a rock star, you still are. Everyone at the harbor and everything, like those guys providing services for us so we can get together and share this is huge. Because I think that support is everything. And with my dad.
Yeah,
I got a great mom too. It's just that. No, it's business-wise, is my dad.
And thank you for the shout out. I mean, that's what this is all about. Baird, on the way in, someone had asked him, like, how are things going? And he's like, well, do you want the real answer of how are things going? Or you want me to just say, like, yeah, everything's great? Because if you ask him how things are going, like, every day's a low and a high. It's just a roller coaster of emotions. So what we breed here is that you should be able to say how you really feel, and you should know that the person on the other side is probably experiencing something similar and can help. All right, last question.
Maybe one more.
Yes, last one.
My name's Greg. Like, how do you deal with finding employees, or you have to deal with that at all in terms of trying to find motivated individuals that kind of match your passion for what it is that you're doing?
How do I find employees? Essentially, God, I wish I had more of a sophisticated answer than this.
Craziness.
Yes.
My staffing after Shark Tank. So I went on Shark Tank, right, and I sold a ton. I literally made a Facebook post. There are a lot of great HR softwares out there as far as you can do, and I think a lot of them are getting really affordable. And I'm not gonna plug which ones and everything, but if I was you and you had something, I would look. There's some really great HR softwares that can find the right fit for what you're looking for. Because I think when you're doing that, you're building culture, right? Just hiring someone is. I mean, I think the whole culture thing is huge. I don't know where that was when you were growing up. Maybe it was around, but I didn't hear about it. So if you're growing, I would use a service that worked within your budget, because I think that staffing component and building culture is huge. For me, it's mainly seasonal, so I just called on some buddies that needed some work.
Workable is a really awesome software product that does the whole process if you're looking for it.